Okay, so we have the second session of 4 with this Crystal Reports webinar. In the first session, we talked about stored procedures and the stored procedure libraries that we've documented here. And there's a long list of them, and we'll add to this as we go as far as identifying some of the ones that are available. The stored procedure libraries allow us to pull data in from the database with the business rules already adhered to, so we don't have to map the tables and understand exactly how the database is put together. On simple reports, tying into the tables is generally not a big deal and is a very viable option. On sophisticated reports, the stored procedure libraries will keep you out of trouble, and where the data is already will come in a format that's already been validated. So accuracy in the reporting process is, crucial, and it's not a given if you're tying into the tables. With the stored procedures, at least all the reports that use the stored procedures, we've gone through validation processes to make sure the data is accurate. And you tie into those processes and take advantage of those processes. So we created a report. We went through the preferences, and the preferences that we identified were the standards for the most part. These are the standard preferences that you set. And if you do this, then we're creating reports with the exact same preferences, and it has to do with font sizes. Being able to pull in stored procedures, this particular preference will show the stored procedures when you tie into the databases. Uncheck smart linking, because smart linking ties like field names together when you pull data, data from the tables, which is not applicable to our system. We didn't organize it this way. And there are advantages to doing that and disadvantages, and I think it's the way we did it is more advantageous. So, those were some items that we went through. And adding fields to the reports, we identified how to add a field to the reports, and let's pull in. Today we'll work with another report. So this is this report that we're going to look at. This is the job list. This is the report that comes up when we click on job cost, job list, and click print. So exact same report. For job cost, custom reports and forms, when we go to the job list multi-print report, you'll see the job list detail, and the name of the file is job list. Okay. So this is job list detail, and you'll see the other names were there, which ties us to this job list report. File, open, get to your reports folder either on the T drive generally or the C drive. T reports or C toolbox reports. Job list, and that's what I double-clicked to bring this report in. So same report here as here. And we created some variables. We're going to illustrate that. The insert field object, and the formulas are here. And so here we're tying in, there's tables in this report. And we pulled in certain concepts, so you can see the tables that were part of this report. And we can pull those into these variables by double-clicking on them. You've got 3 areas here. This is your data, where the data comes from. In this formula editor, these are the functions. You can kind of go through and look at this. This would be like a math calculator function concept. Rarely use anything like that. Converting to strings or getting the length of a string. So there's your plus and minus and divided by signs. If I double click on it, it'll do that, or I can just type it. Okay. Let's go to one of the stored procedures. Double click on this one. Okay, so here's one of the job status reports. Remember this tray down here, this icon tray, is turned on by going View, Toolbars, and Supplementary Toolbar. Supplementary Tools gives us this icon tray, and this particular icon brings up the Link Expert. So if I hover over it and stop, it'll say Link Expert. The Link Expert shows me my database tables. Okay. So we're using tget job status here. So let's correlate that back to our stored procedure library, stored procedure libraries, tget job status, that's one of our options. So you'll notice that in the help screens there's documentation on, like here's setting the preferences, the same thing we just covered. Selecting tables, how we could do that. So there's 3 Crystal Report classes that we put together to begin with. So basically we have 3 classes. These classes are under Contents, White Papers, and Knowledge Base, and then Crystal Reports Training. You'll see all 3 of them here. Okay. So in these classes, the documentation's in there. You have access to the Google Doc that we're putting together, but there's also, there are 3 classes you can walk yourself through. So another source of information. So you sit through the webinars, maybe you re-watch the videos on the webinars, and then maybe walk yourself through this to give yourself additional exposure. I know when I was trying to get acclimated to Crystal Reports, I went through all the videos that Crystal Reports provided. I didn't feel like they were really on point with what we do, so I wouldn't recommend them to you, but you can always go on their website and pull those down as well. So this talks about different concepts and how you can pull tables in. I think one of the other classes, these classes talk about how to pull data in from various sources. The 3rd class was what we talked about when we talked about stored procedures, and now we just start with that concept because this is the easy concept. Pulling data, if you go through these classes, the information is detailed. A lot of it we've already covered in these, so you'll get a refresher. But when you pull in from the table system, it's complex and it's more difficult than pulling from the stored procedures. So what we'll do here is we'll populate our data. The stored procedures that we pulled out of that help screen are here. So commitment status, that's like for doing commitments. We did just do another one called R commitments. And then also R job commitments. And the R commitments, you can go across multiple jobs, and job commitments would be just one job. So those are new. And remember, the R status reports run fast, where these will run slower because they're more in tune to date ranges. Where the R status or the R class of reports are not necessarily date ranged. They're job to date or meant to be more job to date. Unless they're pulling detailed date transactions, and then we put them in the R class because they'll come in very fast. Anything that can run really fast, we'll put them in the R class. So this is our contribution to our documentation for this particular webinar. So a more complete list of TGIT stored procedures. Okay, and so some of these are duplicated, so I'll remove the duplications where I can see them. So cost plus reports. So the bid item, this has to do with the bid item grid. If you wanted to do an AR invoice out of the bid item grid, you want to use this one. The key there is that it's going to print before you post it and after you post it, so that's why. And it ties into the information in the bid item grid. TGET bid items is reporting on the bid item grid. TGET bid items multiple is so report across multiple estimates, commitments, chip cost plus transactions, doc transactions, the document control stuff, inventory, and then IT items is an items concept that goes with inventory. Summary contracts, TGET SOV, schedule of values is what that stands for. So the progress pay applications, AR, so this is what the progress pay applications are driven on. So if we pull up a progress pay application, we're going to see that TGET SOV AR underneath it. So let's do that just to illustrate the concept. I'll open and we say AR INVC So there's one here. The CP is cost plus, so those are cost plus transactions. Multiple ARI and VC, multiple, these will be multiple invoices. So if you want to print all the invoices for the first half of this month or for today, that kind of thing. ARI and VC, but no extension is what I was looking for. It looks like this computer might not have it, but this one ties into the, actually it's not that, it's, I'm pulling the wrong one. It's AIA print bill. This is what I wanted to pull in. So this is the AIA progress pay application. It's TGET SOV AR. So all the progress pay apps are driven on this store procedure. Most of the cost plus transactions would be TGET cost plus AR, I believe is what it's called, and this one doesn't necessarily show that. Let me look it up for us real quick. Yeah, TGET cost plus AR is going to be that. And the capitalization is not relevant on these items. It can be, it's not case sensitive. So TGET cost plus AR, most AR invoices we really want all of them to be generated with that. And then AR invoices originating from the schedule of values or the progress pay grid, pay application area. Okay, so we'll continue. We've done a bunch of store procedures, but they're in the help screens for the most part. There are new ones we pull out, we put in the release notes, and we just need to incorporate some of that into the store procedures. Our commitments and our job commitments is different than this TGET commitments. And these are transaction level, which means it's going to be all the data. And these are ones I'm pretty excited about. You can do a lot with your commitments on that. So we have some good enhancements to our committed job cost reports based on that. Okay, so back to our agenda. So the store procedure library is what we were talking about. Creating variables, let's make sure we covered the on that. Let's cover that again. I just want to pull this up so you can kind of see what it looks like in a preview mode. So this is the progress pay application. Doesn't look necessarily like it here because we're trying to view these lines. And remember, if we go File, Options, and Reporting, actually Layout, it says Show Grid Lines in Design. And that's where we're seeing all these lines with these little markers. So we can line our data up more easily, okay? And we went through those concepts with our options, our preferences. Show grid lines in design was right here, okay? So I think the main thing with Crystal Reports is if you can beat on the material a little bit, go through it again and again, you'll get a feel for it, and it becomes easier and easier to work with and easy to get what you want out of it. So exposure on this is really the key. Crystal Reports is extremely capable. I mean, we've never been stopped on writing a report. With other report writers, we were stopped all over the place. And so we tried to replace Crystal because of the complexity, but I think we came to the conclusion that without the complexity, we couldn't get what we needed. So now that we finally settled in and said we're going to make Crystal Reports work, and we're going to do whatever we need to do to make it easier for our users, and this is what we're trying to do. So creating variables, we're back to trying to cover that. So here we have a bunch of variables, and I'll just right-click on that and click Edit. And so see, we pulled in from that tget SOVAR dot. The dot signifies the separation between the table, or in this case a stored procedure that appears like a table, and the variable name. And so job previous WIP, right? So this basically is the previous billings, and then we put a plus sign there, and then we see there's from this table, there's only one table here. And if I do this, I'll see all the contents of the table. So if I double click on this, you'll see what happens. TGET SOVAR is a table, dot job number. There's the job number. So then we said we want the previous WIP, and we had to come down here and locate it, which is right there. So if I double click on that, I'll get exactly, no, that says job previous WIP, so that's different than previous WIP. Previous WIP would be the bill code previous WIP. So if we went to if we correlated it over here, we'll just come into this report here. Here's the schedule of values. The bill codes previous applications would be the previous WIP. So rather than the job, and the job previous WIP would be this number here, the total. So then we have to come down to the job totals, and then we see that job previous WIP right there. So if I swipe across that and double click on it, I'll get the same thing. So then we added to that, so this is called total completed, this variable. We added to that the job previous materials. So if you do store materials, you got to pull in not only the previous trade amount or WIP, but the previous stored materials that were billed, plus the current job WIP. So total completed is going to be what we previously billed plus what we're billing now, okay? And if we're printing an AR invoice that already exists, the store procedure actually goes to the AR invoice and pulls in the amount that was billed. If we're not pulling it, if we're printing it, like for example, let me show you real quick. If I go to the job and I come into the golden job and I go to the schedule of values and I just add something here and say, okay, we're going to be 50% complete. So now we've got this period. So then now I print this pay app. Well, this period number which came in here. This period number is coming from something that's not posted. There's no AR invoice in the system. So since we printed that on something that was not an AR invoice, it pulled from this grid. But if it was already billed, which we'll pull in the schedule of values, and I'll click on this AR history icon. And here's the invoice that was previously billed, and I'll go ahead and print the AIA print bill, which is going to be, this one is actually tied to AIA print bill. I do that on the schedule of values, there'll be a current, this period number. This actually comes from the invoice itself rather than the screen. Since we printed from an invoice itself, that's different than printing from this grid. So what's nice about this is that this store procedure is going to go out and get the amount off the invoice if we're printing an invoice, and it's going to go and get the amount out of the schedule of values if it's printing something that's not posted yet. So here we're going to pull in the current work in process and the current stored materials. So that's an example of a formula for a variable. So we created a variable. So when we go insert field objects, we've got several concepts. We've got our database. Stored procedure, you're only going to see one table. It's from the tables. You'll see all your tables itemized. The second concept is formulas. So if I scroll up, you'll see it was database, then formulas, and here are all the formulas. Now, notice these check boxes. Those are formulas that are actually used in the report. And so sometimes we'll go in and modify the report, or we'll start a report from an existing report. We don't need all the variables. We don't always delete them. Here I'm deleting the variables that are not being used. So it just cleans it up a little bit. So after the formulas, and we've just gone through an example of that, and I can edit any of the formulas by hitting this pencil icon. So this is the formula for that. Now you'll notice that this @ sign that's significant in that it's a formula. Now if I pull something from the database, it's not going to have that @ sign. So I'll double click on that and see it just has the squiggly brackets with no @ sign. The @ sign actually tells me that it's a formula. So if I come down here to the formulas, they'll all kind of have an @ sign in front of it, including CO total deductions, which is this formula. If I double click on it and try to save it, it's going to say I can't save it because the formula can't be part of its own self. There's an error in the formula you want to save, and I say no. Formula cannot refer to itself, so that's why I got that error. Okay. So also on this, the icons across here, this is save and exit. This is just check, test it kind of a thing. Okay. So those are the formulas. Then we have parameter fields. This is where we're going to filter the report. Okay. And if the store procedure has parameters, it actually just pulls them in. If the parameters are coming from the store procedure, it'll create the parameters on the report automatically, and you won't be able to edit them. So both of these parameters are created with that store procedure. You could actually create additional parameters and filter the report in additional ways by using this item here. We'll cover some of that here in a little bit, or in one of the sessions. So that's an idea of the variables. Okay, so those are the concepts that we've talked about in the past, and now we're going to introduce some new concepts. And so we reviewed the concepts from session 1, and we're going to introduce new concepts. Okay, so let's talk about a running total variable. Okay. And a running total variable is, let's pull in our report. Excuse me. So the job status reports, we can use this concept. Now, okay, so on this job status, what we could do is we could say let's pull it up with this other concept. You'll notice that the job status stored procedure has bill code concepts in here. Okay, so let's cover a concept with the system where a running total is going to be necessary. If we go over to the job notebook and we look at the budget, we have a lot of budget items here, and you'll notice that, for example, this budget item is tied to 01 general requirements for the billing level. The billing level is the schedule of value line item, basically. So if I put an 11 there, you'll see that when I come over here and double click, it has that 11. So that's what it is. It's the bill code. So now every item under 1 in this particular example has that same bill code. So there's many budget items tied to one bill code. Okay, so that's $30,000. Now over here, let's say we want the bill code. We want to know, for example, what the total budget is. Not only the, we want the budget, plus we want the schedule of value number. Sometimes contractors will refer to this as their budget, and it's really their budget with the customer, right? So here we'll do our schedule of value number here, all right? And what we're doing here is we have a group, and we talked about last time we talked about inserting groups, and we inserted a group on the report that we created, okay? And so we have a group called Group By. If we come over here to this Field Explorer, and we want to go to that formula called Group By, we'll notice that if it's a change order, then we're saying the parent budget code, else it's just the budget code, okay? So that's our Group By. So now, this is really a budget code level report. So if we say, and the second Group By is a level 1 code, all right? So the level 1 code would be, in this case, is just going to be this level 1 code, the base level. And the level 2 code would be 1N, and a level 3 code would be 3N. That's how the store procedures created, the concepts behind the store procedure. But let's say we, instead of a level 1 code, we want to group it by the billing code, okay? So we want to group it by the bill code. Now, let me give you an example of a job status report that is actually like that. This job status profit and loss. We'll print that out just so you can get a better visual on where we're headed. Here we have general requirements in our contract amount, our billing, our remaining billing, and then all the line items that fall under general requirements in the budget. So this is a revenue level code, and then this is the budget level items. So the revenue, and then the costs, and then additional information. So now what we want to do is we want this, when we sum this at the bottom, if we sum it for every transaction, we're going to end up with this huge number, because this 30,000 is going to show up on this row, this row, this row, this row, and so you're going to end up with a large number. So if we do schedule of values here, we'll move it into this section, and we'll say right-click, we'll say Insert, Subtotal, and we'll say OK, all right? We'll just do them on all of them. So now we have subtotals on all of it. So now when we refresh the report, you'll notice the concept that comes in. And so basically for each item, we're getting this huge number, $977,000, just for general requirements, when the number is really $30,000. So if I double click on it, you'll notice it's happening for labor, material. Let me move that over so you can kind of see it. So the 30,000 is happening for everything, and it's getting summed and totaled. So that's how easy it is to get the concepts messed up. So since we put the schedule of value row in our data, so our data is a flat file really. So if I look at my flat file, when I say flat file, I mean every row's got the job number. every row's got the budget number, every row's got the billing code number, but there's a one-to-many relationship that exists. Like there's only one job here, so that's one. There's many bill codes. One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bill codes. And then there's probably, let's guess, around 30 or maybe 30, 40, 50, 30 or maybe we'll just guess 30 or 40 budget items. But for every budget item, you're going to get that bill code level. So then what you have to do to get this to come out right is you have to create what's called a running total. And that's this type of field. So if we come in here and we say, all right, well, the variable that we are needing is this. We created a formula here called, well, we wanted to pull in the scheduled value. So this is what we wanted, the bill code schedule value. We're going to sum it, but we're only going to evaluate it when we change our group by, or not our group by, but our level 1 code. Now there's some problems with the logic of the level 1 code versus the bill code, and that the user could come in here and say, I've got a bill code, I've got a schedule a value line item that has no budget items tied to it. Right? If that's the case, now I've got 1,162,000 in my report. Okay, so we've got, now this won't come out, but we'll see the issue. Let's see what I do. I think I canceled it, so I have to do it again. So we'll come in here. And we're going to say on the change of my level 1, which is generally going to work for us. And what I'll do is I'll just put grand total, GT for grand total. Okay, so that's 1. That's going to work for my grand total. So then I can put that instead of this number, which is way wrong, and it's 3,150,000 when it should actually be 1,162,000. So then I come over here and I say, that's bad. So I'm going to delete that. I can't, I don't know, I might be able to drag this on here in this view. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it did. And the number sign means it needs to be wider. So 202,700. Well, that's pretty far off still. So grand total. Yeah, so 202,700 basically doesn't take into account that some of these items may not be in here. So the way around that is to, let's see, we have to group by, can't group by level 1 code because not every bill code has a level 1 code. Notice we created a bill code that has no budget items. We created this. There's no way a budget item is tied to that because we created this after we created the budget. If we go over here and add a budget item and tie it to this, then it'll show up in our report. But right now there is no budget item tied to it. So the way around that is to come in here and say, let's not do level 1 code. We actually have a formula for that level 1 code. Let's see, job status level 1 code. So we'll say change group, and we're going to change the group to the bill code. So one thing that's nice is these stored procedures will pull in a lot of data very quickly. The other thing is we try to add a lot of columns so that you have a flexibility and options when you create the report. The drawback is that you get a lot of columns to look at. Filtering and sifting through them can be a little daunting. But if you study it for a little bit, you'll get a feel for what's there. Okay, so now we've basically changed our level 1 to bill code. So now when we click preview, it's going to give us an error, and it says we don't have a level 1 group sum. It's basically summing all of these items for this level 1 code, which is no longer a group. So if we do that, then we've got to come in here and change it to what we changed the group to. So okay, and I didn't get one of them done. Okay, so now hopefully we've got something that makes sense. 1,162,810, 1,162,810. Okay, so the store procedure, now these numbers are wrong, so we're going to have to create a running total for those. And so we're going to come over here, we're going to say contract amount, and we'll say G2 for group 2. Okay. So we come over here to this amount, which is this one. And I'm pulling the wrong one in, I guess. Schedule, bill code schedule of values. Valid field selection. Not sure what I did wrong on that other one. So the function is going to be sum, and I'm going to say check it or evaluate it based on my group changing, and that was my bill code group level. And then this is going to be for group 2, so every time group 2 changes, I need to reset it. So reset it on group, reset on group 2. So that'll be group 2. That'll show the contract amount in every row, and you'll see we'll do something else with that here in a little bit. You'll notice that we don't have our preferences set, so it's not defaulting to 8. So we'll set that really quickly. Okay, so now we need to replace this one. So we have running total. We'll say contract amount, G1. We're going to come in here. We're going to say these are summaries. See the sum sign. Okay, so we want that one. And we're going to say evaluate it on 1 and reset it on 1, group 1. So then we can move this one over here. So now you can see that this is coming in here. Group 2 would probably be not appropriate to show. I'm not sure why it's not showing it. Oh, I know why. Because we basically have it. The concept is actually not logical. We're resetting it on group 2. Group 2 is getting reset every time. So anyway, that works pretty well for it not to be displayed. Okay, so then there's our contract amount for general requirements, the change order, to so on and so forth. So now those will total at the bottom to the correct number. So that's the concept behind running totals. So the data includes multiple occurrences of it, and if you add them up, you're going to come up with the wrong number here, because it'll be adding it multiple times when it shouldn't be. So that's running totals. And so adding text to a report. So let's say we want something type a word here. You can just click this AB icon, drag it down here, and then this is my. A lot of times we'll see users do this kind of stuff for their company name and other types of things. When if you can pull it in from the database, it's a lot better. Most of the store procedures will have a company name down here somewhere, like this one is a company name. Well, actually, I can't drag from there. I have to go from here. Company name is usually at the bottom. If you call in and we have to add a column to the store procedure, we'll add it at the bottom, and you'll notice that these are probably columns we added after we initially did the store procedure. If we change the store procedure and put them in an order that maybe makes more sense, it basically makes it to where users have to refresh their reports or they don't come in correctly. So sometimes you'll have a report that flashes on you and it needs to be refreshed. You do a support call, we bring it up in Crystal and refresh the report, or we download a reports update. That's because sometimes we do mess with the report sequencing, the field sequencing, because we want it to be more logical. Generally, we don't do that. So that's why you'll end up with fields underneath the company name. The company name was, the intention is to have it last. So that's where this one comes from, TGET job status company name. So instead of typing a custom text name, you should try to refer to the database if you can. That's the custom text, the AB icon. Okay, click the AB icon, insert text object. So you could actually do it. Click it, then you click insert. I don't know, maybe not. Let's see. Not sure what that may have. You just drag it onto the report, so I'm not sure where we came up with that. Insert text object is right here. So it does work that way. So that was meant to be or. Click on the AB icon and drag. Or through the menu system, insert text object. Creating parameters, if we click insert field object, and let's say we want for our report that shows up here, we want it to just pull in for one bill code. We'll say one bill code. The name and the text, I always just make them the same. It's kind of a preference. And so the string, we want it to be a string, which is like text, alphanumeric. Alphanumeric means letters and numbers. Numbers mean only numbers. Date means a date. Time means time. Boolean means a check, or plus, or I'm sorry. Boolean means yes or no, basically. 1 or 0. 1 is yes, 0 is no. That's the convention for development. So here we can actually give it a default. We can just say all as our default. And so now we have a variable called one bill code. We can come over here and we can say show formula. So let's do that. So this is going to be the select expert. There it is. So a report select expert does the same thing. So I'm not sure how we'd describe that. Hand with two wheels or balls. Not sure. Okay, so we'll select that and then click Show Formula. And click Formula Editor. And there's actually nothing in this at this point. And generally, the store procedure parameters, all the work is done in the store procedure. Here we're going to add an additional parameter. We're going to say that we want our bill code to equal all, or our bill code to equal our parameter. So in the parameter, the default is all, which means we want everything, right? So if it equals all, then this is true, and it's not gonna filter the report. If it's not true, like if we put in a bill code, then it's going to say, okay, just filter for that bill code. So if I come down toward the bottom here, I'll see the question mark is kind of like the and sign, or the at sign for parameters. The question mark is for identifies a parameter. And then there was one other thing we did here. Let's see. And the running totals, you can pull them in some cases, and they have like a pound sign. But here we can't do that, so we're going to say equals my one bill code. So it's going to be either or. If I had multiple parameters, I'd want to enclose these two because it has an or in parentheses. So if I said and second condition, for example, whatever that might be, if I didn't do this, the logic would be, is this true, or is this true and this true? So it would be, that's not what we want, because we would be tying these two conditions together. Here we want these two conditions tied together. It's either or, and then and the second condition. So you got to be really careful with your bracketing off or doing parentheses to make sure you keep your conditions together. Okay, so this is the case. So it's either going to do all of them, or it's going to filter for one bill code. So now we come in here and we say, okay, now the report's automatically saying, hey, we have a parameter that's not being used. And so O1, so let's say I say O1A. There's no O1A, so the report comes up with nothing. So now I'll say 1207 was my job number. And I say O1A, actually O1, and it will just filter for my O1s. So now it just gives me O1. So we don't have too much time here, and we're lagging a little bit on our time. So we'll have to cover some of these items in our next session. Creating parameters, that's what we just did. Filtering reports in the Select Expert, we just did that. So the groups, we talked about the groups last time, and we talked about it this time, where we changed the group. If you wanted to insert a group, let's say we wanted to insert at the job level. Let's say the report, if it was TGET job status multiple, it would pull in multiple jobs. So we might want to subtotal by the job, right? So here we'd have, if it said TGET job status multiple, it'd bring in many jobs. Okay. So here, now when we inserted, we said insert group, right? Okay, and then the other thing is, now what if we want this is at the bill code level, right? Which doesn't make any sense. And this formula would need to change too. We'd want to put that in as the bill code instead of the level 1 code. The second group was the group by, and I think that was, if it was a changer, we used the parent. We looked at that formula. But really, we want the job to be at level 1 and level 1 and 2 to be level 2 and 3. So if we go to report, we say change group expert. So we're going to do that groups. We're going to say insert above, and we'll say it's going to be report change group expert. Report change group expert, and then what we can do is we can highlight the job and just click the arrow up and down. Okay. Okay. Let's do, and filtering the report basically is what we just did when we did that through the expert choose fields. Okay. Okay, so filtering through we covered that. And cosmetic changes, that'll be the last thing we talk about before we move it in. And you can add lines and boxes and formatting. We'll probably push that. I'll introduce you to it a little bit. But to put a line in the report, just click that, and you just draw your line. One thing I do a lot is I'll right-click on the line, click Format Line, and I'll change it from black to like gray or silver, so it's dim, and so it's not so hard on the eyes, and it does give the reader a line so they can follow the numbers across. So, and then Control Z will remove the changes you've made. So on the report, change group expert, move it around, click done, and now we're up here on this. Group 1 is now the job number, group 2 is now the bill code. Okay, so I think that's enough material for today, and we're out of time. So I appreciate you sitting in on the webinar, and we'll talk to you. I think a week from Friday is our next session.